welcome to Between the Slides, episode 23. I'm your host, Kevin Pinnell. Thanks for coming back. Today we're going to talk about how garage gyms can help really everyone, but in particular with incident management team members that deploy, how garage gyms can help you for deployment readiness. So a couple years ago, I weighed about 20 pounds more. My mental health state was horrible. My marriage was bad. I wasn't a great dad. And I was super stressed out all the time. So, in large part, as a catalyst to listening to Jocko Willink's Jocko podcast, to hearing the very simple message of, if you want to get in better shape, get up early and go do it. You want to get stronger, lift weights. You want to do more pull-ups, do pull-ups. You want to start your day strong, mentally and physically, then do it. So I did. And I don't remember the exact date, but it was a couple years ago, maybe a little over 2, when one day I set my alarm. I think I started off with 5:30 and went out. I'd had, I think, just a couple 35-pound kettlebells, some resistance bands. Of course, I had a flat. My garage is really a big shed with a cement floor. And I have a basketball court that's a slab that's kind of a grinder, like a military term, where we do exercises. And so I don't even remember the program I did at first. And just started looking up exercises and just putting some together. Following suit with Jocko Willink, taking a picture. My kind of pictures afterwards is really an accountability. You know, if you don't see me post, then I didn't get after it, or I didn't have a reason why. It's a personal accountability. It's kind of a shared thing. It's another thing that Jocko does, has the picture of his hand every day or the sweaty mats and his kettlebells. So I did similar. Shared my workouts. I do kind of the hang loose, symbol, which is, for me, the first time I was exposed to that was my uncle. Great guy. He always used to go, hey, and do hang loose. Now I do it because I do jiu-jitsu, but it's just something that is relaxing and neat. And so for me, not just to be able to carry boxes full of documents, not just to have more energy, to fit in my uniform better, but because I needed to make a change. And I know that there's other folks out there that need to make a change, that should make a change, that want to make a change. But the age-old, I don't have time, gyms are expensive, it's too far away, or just in a rut is where people are. Some people are, and I was there. I've seen, between my time as a corpsman, as a firefighter, EMT, and unfortunately as a bystander to a horrible hot air balloon incident, some really, really bad things. Heard bad things, had to be up close and personal to bad things. And I was at a point where I just wasn't dealing with it well in many of the usual ways. Up late, drinking too much, horrible attitude at home, and really needed to say, okay, what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to be the dad that's balancing your beer on your beer belly and your kids are laughing at you? Or do you want to be the dad that one day they would emulate by them starting to get up early? And I didn't know before. I just knew I was living in my, little world of dealing with my own stress and being on call and just, not happy. And I did not take into account others like I should have. And getting into a focused physical activity made a huge difference. So I hope that through this podcast, I can share. And there's many podcasts, there's websites, YouTube channels, all dedicated towards garage gyms or fitness. And I'll share some of the products and sites I use, getting no endorsements from them. But what I really want to share is this Between the Slides 5, is the 5 core things that help me get out of my own darkness, out of my own mindset, and help me realize that the adversity I put myself through every day on my own makes every single thing in life easier. If I can get up at 5 o'clock, especially when it's cold and those kettlebells are cold steel, and put myself through some sort of exercise regimen, or if you just get up and go for a walk every day in the morning, great. But if you can do that, then when you've pushed yourself, when it comes to, a decision at work or in the field, if you're on an incident management team or on a project, it gives you perspective that not a lot of people have. I think there's a trend now that a lot more folks are in better shape, but there's plenty of folks that are in public safety, in emergency management, in the corporate world that aren't. They're not in shape in many of the ways that I wasn't, mentally, physically, emotionally. And so pushing yourself through physical exercise will help you get better. The discipline it takes to do it will help you get better. So why? I kind of really explained why this episode, going back to that golden circle model that we've kind of bounced in and out of over the few episodes. But following Simon Sinek, the important thing of why is why share, why Garage Gym, I think, will help people be ready for deployment is that it takes away excuses. And so my why for this is to help other folks that are on incident management teams across the country, around the world, realize that your mental health is directly tied to your physical health. That when you go to an area that's flooded out and you see people in distress, when you unfortunately don't find the missing person that's been killed, and you've been part of other significant tragic events, you need to put that bad stuff somewhere. And it shouldn't be in a bottle or pills. And putting it into fitness is a great therapy. It's not a replacement for professional therapy. So if you're having issues, if you're thinking bad thoughts about yourself or others, you need to go talk to somebody before we even get into this, what kind of equipment. And therapy was a big help for me. It helped me get a good perspective. I've had a lot of dogpiled stuff, just like a lot of you out there. Call after call, post after post, people after people you have to deal with, sights and sounds that you see. So focus that energy, focus the emotion, focus the anger, the sadness, the sorrow, the happiness into getting yourself physically better so that you can be mentally better. One of the best quotes I've heard about that is from the Fit to Fight Fire folks that say, don't show up with a $500 helmet and $5 fitness. So that can apply to public safety folks in different genres. Same thing. If you show up with some new high-speed 511 vest and pants and all this and that, but you can't hang with the team. If you show up and you've got all this cool tactical knife and scissors and you're just totally out of shape, and so by the time you carry that stair chair to the third floor, you're gassed out and now you got to do CPR, that's not helping anybody. So change it. Be a more effective part of the team. Look better in your uniform, right? It's going to make a huge difference all around. So between the slides, episode 23, garage gyms for deployment readiness. So these are my suggestions. Like I said, there's plenty of resources out there, plenty. Experts, certified nutrition folks. So caveat again, before you go getting all this stuff and exercising is, make sure you're healthy enough to do it, get checked out and all that good stuff by a doctor. So what I want to share is if somebody said to me, Kevin, you can only have 5 things and we're taking everything else out of your garage gym, what would you do? The first thing is your mindset. You have to know that you want to make a change. You have to get yourself up out of bed again and again and again. You have to decide that you're not going to live beholden to the sorrow that you've seen out on the streets or in another locality. You have to make the decision. The most important piece of equipment is your mind. And if you get used to doing hard things in a garage or outside on your own driveway when it's 5 o'clock and it's pitch dark, then, like I said, things will be less of a factor. And it is therapeutic and it is fantastic. So the first thing for your garage gym is your mindset. Decide that you're going to do it. And then keep deciding you're going to do it. And there'll be roller coasters. I've been pretty consistent, but I've also had days where maybe I got after it a little too much with my friends the night before and I didn't. Or, whatever. And you'll get tired. But you will know once you build up kind of your your level of fitness, your level of mental fitness, that then you get to a point of maintenance. And then you get to a point of what areas now do I want to make better versus your overall health, or in addition to your overall health. So first, get that mindset. Have to be willing to do it. The second piece of equipment, or pieces of equipment, that I would highly suggest is kettlebells. Whatever brand, there's so many out there that range in price. They're relatively not expensive. I have Ethos kettlebells from Dick's is one pair, and then I have a non-brand from Play It Again Sports. I have the first kettlebells I ever got was probably 5 years ago, maybe 35 pounders. And even then, I didn't use them much. I did kind of the traditional weights and that kind of stuff, and some running. But the kettlebell is so diverse. And it's funny because someone just decided to get a cannonball and put a handle on it and make all these great exercises. And then, they've really, especially in the garage gym or really fitness industry, have really popped, and they're fantastic. And so figuring out the right weight for you. I am 5'11", hover now about 200 pounds, a little bit under now. I've been burning a lot of calories lately, but when I started, I was still 5'11", pushing 220 of not lean muscle, I'll say. And that was plenty for me. So if you're a grown man, I would say start with 25 or 30 pounders. I highly recommend looking at onit.com, Onit kettlebell exercises, but you can YouTube and Google kettlebell exercises, and there's fantastic tutorials, because like anything else, you want to have good form. You want to use them really good. And as kind of a guide for kettlebells, you'll hear the term POOD, P-O-O-D, which of course my kids laugh at when I say. So a POOD equals about 36 pounds, and 36 pounds is about 16 kilograms. So kettlebells often have kilograms on them. Some of them have both pounds and kilograms. And so how's the kettlebell going to help? It works your muscles and your cardio at the same time. So like the weights are the cardio. It's amazing. So some examples, there's these things called a suitcase carry. So I hold one kettlebell on one side, and by default, my abdominal muscles on the other side compensate. So it's a great core workout. There's also a farmer's carry. That's when you have one in each hand. It balances you out a little bit more. So it's kind of easier, but then you're going to really work that grip strength. So think about, the closest isn't necessarily an IMT deployment simulation. It's more, think of a firefighter carrying tools, or same for police or EMS, the monitor in one hand and the suction or oxygen, in the other. So you're carrying two things. Having kettlebells and exercising that all the time will make your forearms stronger, your back stronger. You'll get more gas in the tank when you get up there. The kettlebell swing. So think about axe type movements, swinging. You have a straight back, you swing and you stand up. It really develops kind of explosive hip power. So it'll help climbing those stairs for everyone that does that, carrying equipment up the steps. And there's this thing called a goblet squat. So you're holding the kettlebell in front of you and then you squat down. So, think about when you're kind of reaching down or bending down to get a stretcher and you lift it up, that kind of movement. And thrusters, which are basically kind of from squat to shoulder press, just overall great cardio and strength training. So think about, especially for police folks, you're getting up and over, a fence, chasing somebody, or you need help, or you're pushing somebody up and over, or you're getting a victim down a ladder. That above your head kind of strength, they're fantastic. And again, that's just a scratch on the surface of how awesome and how many kettlebell exercises there are. So kettlebells, my mind and kettlebells were the first two things that I really started using that made a big difference for me initially, and frankly kicked my butt. Started with 35s. I have 61 pounders now. So that took a while, for sure at least a year before I was ready to go up in weight, and just take it at whatever rate you can. And if you're, not just to talk about, grown men starting, but there's plenty of kettlebells in smaller weights too for women starting out. And there's plenty of women that use them regularly that use weights like I do, but, at heavier weights. But they're just a great all around exercise for sure. And I should probably mention the Turkish get up just as an overall kind of thing, but you have to Google that one. I don't do them as often, but it's a good total body. So kettlebells. So if someone said, hey, you gotta pick 5 things, my first is my mind, right? That's always going to be with me. And the second is kettlebell. So if you're going to start and make this change, or if you go to a gym, use the kettlebells, ask the folks how to use them. But if you can, again, have them in your house or in your garage where you don't have to get in your car and go anywhere, that makes using them and exercising just as good. And kettlebells, when it's super cold and I have an uninsulated garage. So if it's cold outside, it's cold in the garage, I'll bring them inside and do that. The third thing is a bar to do many different things, primarily pull-ups. And there's a few configurations, right, of bars that you can have. There's freestanding ones you've seen where it's kind of a stand with a pull-up thing and a dip thing and kind of a knee raise thing. And those are good. I had one of those before a few years ago. I actually think I left it with my old fire department, which is great. Other folks to use there. So they're good because they don't take up a lot of space. You don't have to mount them to anything. You just assemble it and it's freestanding. A little limited on space, particularly if you start to get into like knee raises or something like that. But you can do a lot with them, and it has a dip thing built in, so that's good. If you have a bar that you use to hang maybe a heavy bag on, like I do, you can't really work around one of those kind of freestanding ones with a bag because of the stuff on the bottom. It's not really made for that. There's wall mount pull-up bars. Friends of mine have those. Gyms have them a lot, particularly like in school, those ones that are kind of into the concrete or into the wall. So those are great. Pretty easy to mount up as well, just to put it to your desired height. And then there's what I have, which I kind of favor, which is a pipe that my garage, the rafters, the beams are right there. So I just put a pipe between the two and made sure it's fastened really strong. And I use that. So I got a piece of pipe from Lowe's, made sure it's fastened in there really well. And the good thing about that is underneath it is open. So like when I use a big carabiner to hang my heavy bag when I'm doing kind of a boxing workout or something, I can go around it and do that kind of stuff. So the other thing you do in addition to just pull-ups, and pull-ups themselves are, I think to me, like the ultimate human strength test. It's amazing how hard it is to pull your own body to the point where your chin goes over a bar. But well worth it. They're outstanding. And again, there's ways to start with assisted bands. There's ways to do jumping pull-ups to try and get better, right? As you're building up, if you don't do pull-ups, you're probably not going to be able to do a lot of them when you start out. I still can't do a ton of pull-ups. But other things you can do is you can use those kind of exercise straps. Like TRX is probably the most well-known. I have some that are WOSS. It was kind of an off-brand. I think they're gone now, but same kind of thing. So there's straps that you can put on there and adjust them. They're kind of like seatbelt material. And you can then keep your feet on the ground and do stuff for your back, your chest, put your feet in them and kind of do crunches. And they're pretty awesome. There's assisted bands that I talked about. They're giant rubber bands where you kind of put it up and loop around the bar, and then you can pull down and put your feet in it. So it helps pull you up. You can hang from the bar and do what CrossFit calls knees to elbows or knee ups. So you just hang and you just lift your knees up. And then you put them down. You lift them up, put them down, or leg raises where you do that with straight legs. So a bar gives you a ton of versatility to build just true kind of human strength, and they're generally not that expensive, right? Especially if you go the pipe route if you can. But even the wall mount and the freestanding ones for what you get out of it are fantastic, and that's just really good. Especially again with the straps, I'd recommend. That's kind of an add-on to this 5 list, but it's a good bonus for that. So I've got my mindset. I've got a pair of kettlebells. I've got a bar of some sort. And the next thing I want to do for me, part of my core things that I used was a jump rope, right? I prefer the ones that are weighted in the handles because the rope itself it's whatever covered in plastic. It's a little thicker, and I'm not super at jump rope. Like there's the other well-known kind is a speed rope, where a lot of CrossFitters use to do what's called double unders. So you make it go into your feet twice, like real fast. I'm horrible at those, probably just from a practice thing. But the first ones I got were the ones where there's like a pound in the handle. They're kind of big. They fit your handles really well, and just doing that. And the jump rope for me, it's a great way to mix in cardio or warm up. So, hey, I'm going to jump rope for a few minutes. And it's amazing how hard it is. When we were kids, we'd jump rope for hours or however long. And our legs weren't crying when we were done. But as an adult, when you start doing that, it's amazing how hard it is to jump rope. But you'll get some great cardio out of it, great leg work. And like I said, there's a few different ones, the speed rope, the weighted ones. And you can also mix them in. There's this workout sequence called a Tabata, where essentially you do 20 seconds of as hard as you can, something exercise, then 10 seconds rest, and off and on and off and on. So you pick 8 exercises so that you get 4 minutes of work, and you do that sequence a few times and your butt's kicked. So jump rope's a great thing to kind of mix in there. And again, going back to the time thing, if you can go in your driveway and do this, some jump rope, you're just going outside, right? It's not a big deal. It's not going to take long. It's good to practice that you're going to get some great cardio. And if you're starting as I don't want to do kettlebells or I don't want to put a bar, let me just get that jump rope. You're going to be great. You're going to be taking that step toward better fitness. You can focus whatever it is you had from that day or that week or that month or whatever into your exercise. And it's just a great piece of equipment. My fifth thing that I would have if someone said, I had to make a list of 5 pieces of equipment is resistance bands and therapy bands. So they're kind of 2 different ones, but bands. So the resistance bands are essentially like those big rubber bands with handles, but they're kind of a tube. So the heavy bands are great as far as like a burn and toning to, stand on it and do curls or stand on it and do shoulder press. I remember in the supervisor's office where I worked for EMS agency in the city, we would have some of those and, come out and do sets of curls and then press above it and then some lat pulls so you can put it around, a sturdy thing that holds it so you can pull it kind of back to your back. But you get a great quick pump, great toning, and it's low impact too. You don't have to know any crazy overhead movements or pull yourself up on a bar. So the heavier ones are good, like weights, to kind of make you a little stronger. Light ones I love for either high rep stuff where you can kind of put the band through a big carabiner or turn around and kind of like throw punches, so resistance, kind of Rocky style. But another great thing that I learned through various aches and pains and doing physical therapy over the years is strengthening your shoulders. So where you can stand holding the handle with the other end attached and you kind of raise your arm straight out ahead of you and then you turn sideways and bring your arm across you and turn and go backwards in this sequence. So you're kind of going laterally and forward and just a great, there's again, plenty of references to look at resistance band exercises. The other band, that therapy band, are the various colored bands, they're red and blue and yellow and black. And I think resistance kind of varies, or if not, I think the yellow one's really lighter and the blue one starts to get a little stronger and the black ones are usually pretty strong as well. And so with those, you do a lot of hip and knee therapy and foot and ankle therapy. So think about, you're out on a deployment, you're going to walk around and you've built up the little muscles that are going to support the big muscles when you're out helping lead a search, or when you're walking around even in comfy hiking shoes and you're on concrete because you're in the command post or the planning section or logistics, moving stuff around. You gotta compensate and really build up those muscles that are going to be taking a beating out there while you're walking around. So those resistance bands and therapy bands can make a huge difference. So for how I think you can set up a pretty low expensive garage gym or a room in your basement or room in your house is your mindset, which is critical. It's the most important. I highly recommend to set up kettlebells. There's so many manufacturers out there, but if you're just getting your first pair, get a cheap pair. They do the same thing. They're a cannonball with a handle on it. So there's all these other kinds that are popular and expensive. So just get a cheap pair from a Play It Again Sports or somewhere like that used and just feel it out. Target has them, for a good starter pack there. Get some kind of bar where you can do pull-ups or you can put straps on there and do those kind of assistive workouts. Get a jump rope. That's great cardio. And get resistance bands and therapy bands. That's what I would say is a great start where you can, if you're someone that's going to deploy on an incident management team, build some strength, build some cardio, help support your supportive muscles and tendons and ligaments and things for when you're out there, walking around and carrying equipment and going back and forth across whatever big campus or area that you're working. It can make a huge difference. And again, the most important benefit that you will get if you bring your mindset, that first piece of equipment, is you will feel better mentally, emotionally, and then the physical aspect will come with it, right? The hardest part, and there's lots of sayings around it, but the hardest part, the journey of 1,000 miles is the first step. It is by far the hardest part to decide, okay, tomorrow it's going to happen. Tomorrow I'm going to get up, or after work. But, the morning, you feel different when you work out in the morning than you do if you don't. It really gets the blood flowing. It refreshes you and gets you started. And so I highly recommend it. So I hope everyone's doing well out there. I've shared on betweenthe-slides.com some of these resources, some places you can buy these products actually. So there's some links to the resistance bands, the assisted pull-up bands. I use Zombie Strength. and to the kettlebells, kind of where I bought them, and heavy bag and some of that stuff. And I can share more of that as well. Feel free to email me at kp.bts.podcast.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at PSC to PMP. I typically post my daily either jiu-jitsu or exercise routines. And so I love sharing that. I've learned a lot from other folks that have done the same. There's tons of garage gym life, Instagram posts and YouTube channels, some really good ones out there. So if you're looking to build your gym beyond this, but again, I think these 5 things, these mindset kettlebells, some kind of bar, jump rope, and resistance or assistive bands can be really helpful to set that up. So I hope you all are doing well. If you're not, make the change and talk to somebody and help change yourself, right? Put the work in. You and your mind, your soul, your people around you, everyone will thank you, right? Most importantly, you will have helped yourself and you will thank yourself for it. So thank you for listening to this podcast. I hope you stay safe out there, whether you're in a patrol car, in a station waiting for that call, on a post somewhere, in an ambulance, or you're in an office, right? Working projects. This is just as important for you all who are doing that office work, right? It can be sedentary, so do something not sedentary in the morning. So thank you again, and Godspeed.